On this edition, I'm going to break down and predict the upcoming fight, UFC 152, between Brian the All-American Stann and Michael the Count Bisping. Now, Michael Bisping's been called out by quite a few guys, Brian Stann being one of them, Alan Belcher being the other one. Both guys expressed interest in fighting. Obviously, Brian Stann got his wish. He gets to fight Michael Bisping. This fight, if Brian Stann's victorious, will definitely help him skyrocket up in the rankings. And obviously, a win for Michael Bisping would most definitely mean that he's one of the top contenders in the middleweight division. And this fight should be outstanding. I mean, you've got two guys who have serious power in the stand-up department, like to finish fights, and have formidable ground games. Obviously, Bisping having the better ground game. So what I'm doing this video, I'm just going to break down both fighters. I'll do my predictions. So I'll start with Brian Stann. Now, Brian Stann has come a long way in mixed martial arts. Yeah, I don't want to say he's new to the game of mixed martial arts. He's not a veteran like Michael Bisping is, but Brian Stann's obviously training with Greg Jackson or at Greg Jackson's camp, and it's really done good things for him. And he really, I know Jackson fighters implement good game plans, but Brian Stann's a guy who's always going for the kill. The guy has some serious stand-up. I mean, he's definitely one of the better stand-up fighters in the middleweight division. People could say he's raw. Brian Stann's a killer on his feet, and he can be both aggressive and a counter-striker at the same time. And he's been learning to put together combinations. I'd say it's very simple, though. I wouldn't say he's a volume striker. He's more an aggressive in-your-face fighter, and if you're pressing the pace on him, he's going to counter-strike. And when it comes to pressing the pace, there's no better guy than Brian Stann. He throws a really good 1-2. He's got some serious power in his hands. The guy has 9 knockouts on his resume. He's very effective in the clinch. He could separate with elbows. He does throw knees out of the clinch. It's questionable how he could be effective in the clinch against a very good clinch fighter like Michael Bisping. And also with the counter-strike as well, if you are going to press Brian Stann, he will find a way to find. He can always find your chin. He is an accurate striker too. And we also saw in his last fight with Alessio Sakara, obviously not a top-tier fighter, a top-tier middleweight. Brian Stann showed us how far along his ground game has come. He took Alessio down to the ground, and he implemented some savage ground and pound. And that's what he can do. His ground game, I want to say it's underrated. I mean, it's still coming a long way. He's a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's a question of how well he fights off his back in this fight. If he could get in the dominant position, how he can hold Michael Bisping down to the ground. But he is effective in the ground and pound department. I'd say he's a better dominant position ground fighter. Off his back, we've seen fighters expose him. Well, mostly wrestlers. And Michael Bisping is a very underrated grappler. So that will be an interesting factor in this fight. He can submit fighters off his back. He's still blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So in regards to Brian Stann, where I think he'll be successful in this fight, there's no doubt. I think he needs to keep this one standing. He cannot wait around. I think he has to. I think the best fight he needs to watch in order to be successful is to watch the Dan Henderson versus Bisping fight. A guy who puts Michael Bisping out of his comfort zone, which is a really good technical striker. You have to be aggressive. Even that means putting your chin on the line. And Brian Stann has been finished before. He has been knocked out. He has been submitted. So that's the question. I mean, how is Chin's going to hold up? But I think he needs to keep this one staying. He needs to be aggressive. He needs to pressure Michael Bisping, whether he gets knocked down in the first round or whether he can knock out Michael Bisping in the first round, second, or third. That's the biggest question. But he needs to be aggressive. He needs to let the strikes fly. You've got to put Bisping out of his comfort zone. And if he does that, he could very well knock out Michael Bisping. He does have power. I want to say he has more power than Dan Henderson, but the guy has some serious power in his hands, so he could definitely finish this fight. So he needs to keep it standing, in my honest opinion. So Michael Bisping, just to clarify first, he had a very close fight with Chael Sonnen. I don't think Michael Bisping is far down on the top contender list. I think he's actually still right up there. Let's just face facts here is that it was a very close fight. Some people think that Michael Bisping won the fight. Actually, I'd say a majority of people think Michael Bisping won the fight. And he wasn't defeated in decisive fashion. It was a very close fight. I still think Michael Bisping's up there on the list. It may be a loss, but I don't think it was a bad loss for Michael Bisping. I think that's the best way to put it. And Michael Bisping's skill set, he is the more balanced mixed martial artist in this fight, no doubt about it. His stand-up striking, his kickboxing, his boxing. I mean, if there's a guy who can get in a technical striking match and literally pick you apart, it's Michael Bisping. Very smart stand-up fighter. He has very good power as well. A boatload of knockouts in both stand-up and the ground and pound department. He utilizes his hands very well. He implements leg kicks very well. In the clinch, he's been known to control the clinch, very good clinch control, and he throws knees, separates with strikes, and he works the body very well. We've seen him pick apart guys in the stand-up department, and he's a very smart stand-up fighter. His counter-striking is outstanding. His jab, he utilizes his jab very well in a very good 1-2, and his combination striking. He could do a 1-2, then mix in a leg kick. I don't want to say that he is a deceptive fighter. I'd say he's a smart fighter. He's an accurate striker. He finds the gaps, and his spacing is very good. But and he has good footwork too. Michael Bisping has very good footwork, but he's definitely the more dynamic striker in this fight, especially against a guy like a Muay Thai fighter and a boxer like Brian Stann. And he does have the knockout power in this fight as well. He can most definitely knock out Brian Stann in this fight. In regards to his ground game too, he is so underrated. I mean, what he did to Chael Sonnen was not a joke. It was not a fluke. He literally gave Chael Sonnen one of the hardest grappling fights of his life. And it's not that people are so surprised, like, oh, well, Brian Stann's doing it to Chael Sonnen. It must be Chael Sonnen. No, it was Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping is a very underrated wrestler. He's a good wrestler. He's a strong guy. He's very good strength. He has very good core strength, and he has good technique in the wrestling department. He is not an easy guy to get down to the ground. You cannot just bully a guy like Michael Bisping. We saw Sonnen got him down to the ground. He got right back up, except for that third round, and Bisping still reversed it at the end of that fight. Michael Bisping can do a double, he can do a single, he can sweep your leg, and he can toss you down to the ground. And I think he can most definitely do it to Brian Stann if he's going to fight a smart fight. And he's also a very skilled submission artist. I believe he's 4 submissions on his resume. He can submit fighters. He could very well submit Brian Stann. He's the better grappler in this fight. There's no doubt about that. And where I see Michael Bisping being successful in this fight, he could keep it standing. I mean, I wouldn't flirt with the power of Brian Stann. If it starts to get aggressive, if Brian Stann starts to put Bisping out of his comfort zone, I try and dump him down to the ground, and I use my better grappling. But Bisping can keep it standing. If Stan's not being aggressive, he can most definitely pick apart Brian Stann. I'd say he's definitely, I don't want to say he's the quicker fighter in this fight. I mean, Stan's got explosive, very good pop and explosiveness in his striking, good hand speed. Both guys are very fast and formidable strikers. I think if Bisping could be effective standing, he could very well knock out Brian Stann. But I think if he wants to play it safe, take it down to the ground, and you can most definitely win this fight via ground and pound, or you can definitely submit Brian Stann. We've seen guys bully him, and Michael Bisping has a very underrated ground game, a good ground game to be a fact. So he could definitely finish. I don't see this fight going to decision. Somebody's going to get finished, and only one guy's going to be named the victor. So that's where I see Bisping being successful. So where my prediction lies, and any day. I mean, I think really if Stann is to win this fight, it will be a blueprint of how Dan Henderson defeated Michael Bisping. Be aggressive. Don't let him set up his striking. Do not let him be technical in this fight. Throw him off his game plan. I was up till about 3 minutes before I shot this video, I was going to go with Brian Stann, but I'm going to go with the safe bet on this one. I'm going to go with Bisping. He's the more balanced mixed martial artist, and I think I can't pinpoint exactly how he's going to defeat Brian Stann, but he's going to finish Brian Stann. He's going to either TKO, knock him out, or submit him. This fight's not going to decision. These guys have too much firepower and weapons in their arsenal for this one to go to decision. So I see if Bisping's going to do this, he's going to be a very good technical striker, but if I see him winning this one the most definitive way, it's going to be him getting Brian Stann down the ground and using his better grappling, either submitting or TKOing or knocking out Brian Stann. So I'll take Michael Bisping defeating Brian Stann at UFC 152 via knockout, TKO, or submission. And that's what I have for this edition. It's Kyle Delaney signing off. I'm out of here.